Welcome to another Tackle Obesity show featuring Coach Richard Walker, our host, members of the NFL alumni, lifestyle weight loss experts, and key social media influencers that are making a difference. Now, Coach Richard Walker.
Hey, listen up. Bring it in. Another Tackle Obesity Huddle. Thank you all for joining us again. We are so glad to have you on the show. And make sure you follow us, like, share, subscribe, tackleobesity.com. Also follow us on social media on any platform, Tackle Obesity, at Tackle Obesity. We're so glad to have you. We're so glad to have all of our wonderful teammates, past and present. If you know anyone who needs support, anyone who is in the battle against obesity, have them join us. Tag them on social media. Encourage them to go to the Tackle Obesity website, sign up for support. That's what we're here for, because we know that tackle obesity is a medical condition. It is not a character flaw, and we are working together as a team to overcome the tackle obesity epidemic. I want to talk real quickly before we get started today about summer. We're at the final few weeks of spring. We're transitioning to summer. Kids are going to be out of school. Beaches are open. Parties, summer parties. And many of us as adults, we focus on our summer bodies. But what about the children? And one of the things that gets overlooked is the fact that during the summer, this is a pitfall for obesity in our children. In a recent study by the National Institute of Biotechnology Information and the National Library of Medicine, it shows that during the summer months, children tend to gain weight on a 30% higher clip during the summer months than they do during school year. Primary factors include the fact that there's less activity. Some of the children are not getting out and playing. In the South, we have the issue of, possible heat exhaustion due to extreme temperatures. And then there's just a general overall lack of activity from not having a structured environment, not moving from class to class. They're parked in front of their TVs, their tablets, and video games, their phones all day. So there's a downtick in activity, but there's a huge uptick in the amount of food that they consume. And not only the amount of food that they consume, it's the types of food that we consume. We are addicted to processed foods, and having more access to processed foods is never a good thing. Children are sitting around eating cookies, crackers, chips, popcorn, whatever, all day long. And so this is causing a problem. Accumulating evidence shows that children in the USA from 2007 to 2017 gained an average of 12 pounds during the summer months. That's a significant amount of weight, 12 pounds on average that they gain during the summer months. So we need to focus on not only making sure that our children have more activity and maintain that activity during the summer months, but we need to monitor the foods that they eat. So I encourage you all, definitely get some support on what you can offer to your children. We have some amazing content on our website, tackleobesity.com. Specifically look at the Dr. Nerd segments where we talk about different things that you can offer to your children as alternatives instead of processed foods, and encourage your children to be more active and to eat better. So these are ways that we're going to work together to overcome this problem that we're seeing during the summer months. Now that we have talked about that issue, I want to focus on our two amazing teammates that I brought along today. One of them is our OG, the man who has been there from day one, Mr. Russ Allen. He is the director of the NFL Alumni Wellness Program. He is the brainchild of the Tackle Obesity Program. He's the one that I met in Vegas when I was hoarding chips, crackers, and cookies and everything at 400 plus pounds. And here I am today. So I am so grateful to have him here. How are we doing today, Russ?
Richard, I'm doing fantastic. And it's always so great to see you and be able to share the things we're learning about tackling our obesity. My story was I lost 50 pounds. My before picture was literally in front of the sign in Death Valley. So you couldn't do it. After that, my wife lost 70. So as a couple, we really took this on together. And it's really taken a new direction in my life. And just like you, I had a transformative journey, and it really is such an honor to be here.
Absolutely. And It is a pleasure and an honor. Guys, bring out your notepads. Drop questions in the chat if you have any. Email us. When we'll get the questions to Dr. Natello to provide you with answers. He is a guru in this battle against obesity from the perspective as a medical professional. Obviously, he's a cardiologist. He's got infinite amount of experience dealing with people that are dealing with this obesity crisis. But then he also has a personal pivot to this as well. And I'm going to let him talk about that as well. He is a trusted medical professional in this business, has been dealing with patients and the comorbidities of obesity. So it is such an honor to have you here, Dr. Greg Natello. This is the last time I will use this word because now you're our teammate. We're no longer going to call you a guest. You're now a teammate. Our new teammate, Dr. Greg Natello.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much, Richard. And thank you, Russ. It's been a pleasure to work with Russ and tackle obesity and fight against diabetes for a couple of years now. And thank you so much. And proud of both of you for what you do. All the people you're helping is fantastic. And it's a beautiful day. And we should start out with some gratitude and know why we're here, have the mindset. And why we're here is to improve. Well, actually, we're here not just to prevent and not just to better manage, but to reverse chronic disease. And right now, we're flooded with an epidemic of chronic disease in our country. And what that means is it's a leading cause of disability, greatest reason for healthcare spending, greater than 90% of healthcare spending, and greatest cause of premature death. And we're talking about things like stroke, heart attack, Alzheimer's dementia, premature dementia, obesity, diabetes, hypertension, kidney disease. And actually, all these things are a symptom of the flame that's out of control inside us from the exposures we have all the time. And what I want to do is make this very real to people, because the purpose of this today is to tell you how we can do this. It's very doable. It's just oftentimes we're not aware of things. And that the NFL alumni are legends, models for society, models for kids, and have a tremendous impact. And each of us suffers with one chronic illness or another. Our families do, the people around us. And there's a lot that we can do to help ourselves and help other people. And that's what we're going to go through today.
Dr. Natello, I'd love for you to share a little bit about your own experience as a youth and struggling with type 2 diabetes. And we'll let you go.
Well, Russ, I'll tell you, when I was in my early teenage years, I had diabetes. And my mother, who grew up on a farm but worked as a professional waitress in Philadelphia at the pub, and my father was a barber, and my mother just wouldn't stand for it. My mother went out of control when the doctor said, "Here's insulin," at age, 11 or 12. And I was very overweight. I was obese. And my mother just wouldn't have that. And my mother imposed on me her lifestyle habits, having grown up on a farm, and actually reversed my diabetes. And at the time, it's kind of interesting because at the time it was called adult onset diabetes versus type 1 diabetes, right? Type 1 diabetes, about 5% of people, but overwhelmingly 95% of diabetes is type 2. And at the time we didn't know that. And the doctor said, "Oh, you're going to die without insulin." And my mother took a risky chance and straightened my life out on what I ate and what I was exposed to, and actually resolved me of diabetes, which has come back at times or threatened to come back in my life. But I lost the obesity. I lost the diabetes for good, pretty much. And I'm forever grateful for that. And I'll show you, as we go on, and I'm just going to show a few slides, but I'll show you as a college football player versus later on as a busy interventional cardiology, carrying Twinkies around in my pocket and drinking Cokes and not sleeping for years. The difference, same BMI, but I'm going to show you the difference between health and illness. And then, and again, in my adult life, Richard and Russ, there was something wrong with me. And I had to go to one doctor after another. And everybody said, oh, you're just working too hard. Don't worry about it. You're just working too hard. And I said, no, there's something wrong with me. And actually, I was pretty sick. And finally, I got a diagnostic label. And then they tried to just put different layers of paint on the hood without addressing the engine under the hood and without getting to the heart of the matter. And they all meant well. And then I was privileged because I could go back to everything I had learned, but maybe didn't learn during my education at the Cleveland Clinic over the last 100 years of the history they set every day to save lives and care for life, right? So I went back and kind of was privileged to go back and get re-educated rather than just putting stents in heart attack patients, which is fantastic and honorable. But even the first doctor, the doctor that did the first bypass surgery, Rene Favallaro, Cleveland Clinic, said atherosclerosis is a disease, and I can do bypass surgery, but I'm not treating a disease. And we know that because we do a bypass and someone comes back with a stroke where they still have high blood pressure. They're all different faces of the same internal inflammation. And Richard, I don't want to bore your audience with oxidative stress and immune dysregulation, but there's an internal flame that gets out of control, and then it's manifests as chronic diseases, of which there's only a handful, of which obesity and overweight are major issues. And about 40% of Americans are overweight. And if you combine, about 3 out of 4 Americans are either overweight or obese, about 45% are obese. And we'll talk about what obesity means a little bit as we go on. So yeah, I have had to walk the talk. I've had to learn and go back and get enlightened repeatedly. Right. And I spent many years doing that, Richard, and had to kind of change my whole career focus, my whole vocational focus, and get enlightened. And fortunately, I had the resources to go do that and save my own life as well. And then learn a better way to help people actually. And you know, the way that I view life now is to help people with their lifespan, their health span, right? It's not just how long you live, but you want to have a health span. You want to be vigorous. If you want to go out and you want to pick up your grandchildren or your kids or whatever you want to do, you want to be able to do that for as long as possible and have a vibrant, exciting, happy life, right? So that's kind of what it's about, and that's what we're going to talk about today, how to do that.
I'm glad you brought up the fact that you had to re-educate yourself on what obesity is and specifically to you, how you treat it. So I know this is sort of a paint with a broad brush, but how do we re-educate our medical community? Because I think a lot of the people that are in practice right now, you know, forgive me if I'm misspeaking here, but it seems like a lot of people that are in practice are dealing with the back end versus prevention. So how do we turn that curve where we're educating our medical professionals to focus on prevention versus treatment?
Well, that's a good point. And Richard, the way I look at it, it's not just prevention. Okay. It's also about improving how we manage chronic disease and furthermore, reverse atherosclerosis, put diabetes in remission, get rid of the things that are driving these chronic diseases and turn chronic diseases around and turn lives around. But to answer your question, I don't want to be derogatory or negative at all, but you know, we're talking about things that have been going on for generations now. And what we've developed since World War II is a hammer nail. Okay, everybody's in a hammer nail, and it neglects the biologic differences between you, me, and Russ, and the things that are driving that and those phases of chronic disease. So we really have become very siloed. And I could talk all day about, we have guys that are into the brain thing. We have guys that are into the GI microbiome. We have guys that are into hypertension, but we've not been educated to listen to what we've already learned since the 1940s, that we are what we are in life every day, and how we feel and how we function and how long we live is due to how well our orchestra works. Right. All the pieces in the symphony in our body, and we call it systems biology. And it's all connected. Your gut is connected to your brain. Your gut goes faster to your brain than your brain goes to your gut. But all these things are so intimately related, and that determines who we are, Richard, and how we feel and function every day. And I'm going to give you a group of common things that holds the answer to how we can optimize that and optimize our function and vibrance in life.
Terrific.
One of the things that, we really
I'm sorry, I probably didn't answer, but what we're doing now is it's not just medicine, but you can't give someone this in a 15-minute office visit. Mm-hmm. The doctors are really pounded now, and again, the medical schools are starting to implement this, a better education. But then as far as delivery, it's not possible to deliver this in brief office visits, let alone and a doctor may not have time in their life to go back and relearn or gain a more enlightened perspective now. But certainly they have an obligation, I believe, to provide access to a system that will help them, a patient, learn that and put those things into their daily life in a happy, joyous way. And it's not about restricting or you can't eat this. It's about opening the abundance of life-giving and life-saving things that people are not aware of. Unfortunately, we live in a society today that things are upside down, right? And inside out, meaning that everything that is health adverse has been presented to us since the 1980s and 1970s and 90s. That's been presented to us as normal, and it's not normal. So things are upside down and backwards, and people have been programmed, like kids think Tony the Tiger is a wonderful thing with frosted flakes and sugar, right? Mm-hmm. And again, I'll say 30 or 40 years ago, there were 350 products in the grocery store. Today, there's 35,000. Wow. But if you really look at it, 95% of them are all the same thing. Right. They're all seed oils, omega-6 things, heavily processed, what we call ultra-processed food, and we have a definition for that. But a way to look at that would be if you take an apple and then you compare it to getting the apple pie at McDonald's. There's no correlation with the nutritional intention of the apple, but yet people are buying that. Or you think about kids are getting apple juice.
Right.
Well, they're getting a bolus of sugar, an IV sugar bolus. Their insulin goes up, chronic insulin, and then for years you develop insulin resistance, which is the precursor to it's chronic inflammation, and it's the precursor to prediabetes and diabetes and obesity and all those things. So what I'm trying to say is, but yet people think, oh, I'm going to feed my kid apple juice. It's a wonderful thing. It's not. You're hurting your kid. Mm-hmm. And there's so many things, but you think you're doing the right thing. So our society has really misled us, and it's economically driven by the 4 or 5 food companies basically that we have in the world. And so we really have to just help people get an awareness, but more importantly, then we have to show them the abundance of things for their life that they don't know about.
Absolutely. That's a great point. And that's where I was going with the next question is that one of the things that we really emphasize on this show and through all of our content is that I like to use the saying that your food is your medicine. And if you don't focus on it that way, then your medicine will become your food.
Absolutely. And in fact, it's interesting, Richard, there are some groups in medicine, the functional medicine people, which I'm one of them. And I'm also American College of Lifestyle Medicine kind of person. And so there's a big emphasis now to bring these everyday things that we do every day in our life, to bring these things into what becomes our habits, our mindset, our emphasis. So we're trying to do this. And unfortunately, if we had all the leaders in our country, because it's a global issue now, but if we had all the people in our country, all the leaders for health and business together and make a stand, it would make a fast difference. But right now, it's going to depend on the individual. It's going to be personal accountability and awareness. And we can go through some of the things we need. You have to know why. Why does this matter to me? Okay. And, what am I living for? And then we have to know how to do it. We have to be able to
bring some slides for us today that you can kind of dig into.
Yeah, Ron, thank you so much. Let me pull them up just to give you an introduction. Thank you so much.
And for those of you that are listening on our podcast networks and also on our 3 radio stations, KCAA 102.5, 106.5, the station leaves the listener behind, 1580 The Fanatic, and WCKG, we have these slides. We will have them available on our website. So you can go to tackleobesity.com. We'll post it in there for you to see.
Post the whole video.
And this whole video will be available on our YouTube channel as well.
All right. On this slide, on the top left, what I'm trying to show you, and we can talk about Gatorade later, but actually, all right, let me divert for a minute.
Sure.
Okay, Nixon, to get elected, had to come up with something big. He came up with, we want to make food cheaper and more readily available. And that was a major platform for him. And that really changed the industry. And then when Gatorade got sold from the Gators, the national championship Gators, to Pepsi, they put fructose in that. And we can talk about fructose as toxic and a major issue here with obesity and liver disease that's epidemic now. And but the point is that as all the exposures we have in our lifetime, at the top, whether it's autoimmune disease, diabetes, type 2 diabetes, asthma, autism, our chronic disease has exploded over the years. Our genes haven't changed, but what's changed is what we're exposed to in our bodies every day. Over here, I have a slide, chronic diseases in America. And if this doesn't make Russ fall off the chair, nothing will. but Richard, look at this. 6 out of 10 Americans.
That is unbelievable.
Have at least a chronic disease. 4 in 10 have 2 or more chronic diseases. Chronic diseases, and there's only a handful, and they're all different phases of the same underlying inflammation. But chronic disease is the leading cause of death and disability and accounts for greater than 90% of healthcare spending. And then I'm going to go further. I'm going to show you the younger population even. This is unbelievable. 1 out of 2 people aged 18 to 34 have at least one chronic disease. 1 in 4 aged 18 to 34 have at least 2 chronic diseases. And every day there's new data, the cancer, and we're changing guidelines, doing colonoscopy earlier, mammograms earlier, cancer's happening in the 30s. Adult onset diabetes would change to type 2 diabetes because kids get it. And if you have type 2 diabetes as a kid, like I did, you have earlier complications and premature death, and heart attacks are happening in age 20 and 30. And then we'll go to another slide. I want to give you the background of what we're dealing with. This is a great study. There are 2 great studies. Top left, what I'm showing is less than 1 in 10% of Americans are metabolically healthy. Because with obesity, that's what we're talking about. It's metabolism, the physiologic processes in our bodies that help us function and keep us alive. And ineligible to serve in the military, Richard and Russ, 70% of people in the United States, young people, they're not qualified with their health to serve in our military.
Right.
And I'm reminded about Dr. Cosgrove, former CEO and president of my professional home-based Cleveland Clinic. The state of our nation is only as good as the state of our health.
Right. We actually had General Mark Hertling talk about the fact that our obesity rate is a national security issue, and that they have to spend 6 times as much to recruit one soldier now because of obesity, because most of the recruits fail to even make it to boot camp. And then even further than that, they're graduating about 40% of the boot camp candidates that actually make it to boot camp.
That's a great
They have to go back and, get them to meet the BMI standards and the physical standards so they can pass the PT portion to even make it to boot camp.
Absolutely, Richard. In fact, they've done 2 things now in the military. They've reduced the standards, but the other thing they've done is they have like a pre-boot camp trial where they try and get you healthier so that you do meet the standards. But again, that's pretty frightening, and that's a very good point. It is a national security issue. Yeah. And this is me briefly. This is me as a little kid, Gregory, the Italian little kid, and people would pinch my cheeks and give me a headache, shaking my head. But when I got diabetes, my mother just couldn't handle it, and God bless her. And she made sure that I implemented what I was eating and had a lifestyle more like her. And then in the middle picture here, I'm showing you me at Gettysburg College as a football player. And to the right of that is me as a busy cardiologist putting in stents all night, heart attack. And both pictures on the right are both extreme pictures. As a little kid and me as a cardiologist, the big difference was I had a big waist. My waist to hip ratio was too big. My waist size was too big. And my waist to height ratio was too big. And again, the football picture and the doctor picture of me, same BMI, Richard and Russ, same BMI. But the difference was not just that I had a lot of fat and less muscle, but more importantly, I'll show you where the fat was. And when you have fat in your waist, in your abdomen and or your liver, that's an active inflammatory organ spewing toxins called cytokines all over your body, making you inflamed and sick. And I want to show you here, in my football picture, I'm a lot smaller than I am in my doctor picture, because in my football picture, I had a lot more muscle and less fat. Muscle is more condensed, weighs more, and is more dense and solid and smaller. Fat is much bigger, less dense, takes up a lot more room. And if the fat is in the wrong place, like in your waist and inside your tummy, then it's metabolically active. It's dramatically leading you down the road to things like stroke, high blood pressure, premature death, etc. And now I'm just, again, obesity, overweight. The real issue is too much fat and in the wrong kind of fat in the wrong places. And we're trying to move away from this BMI thing. It was never intended to be in medicine. And the insurance people in the 1950s said, yeah, there's kind of a correlation. So we're going to use this in our insurance products. But what we're really focused on today is visceral adipose tissue. The waist size is much more important. And we also look at percent body fat, but most importantly is where the fat is, the metabolic fat. And I'm showing pictures here of, you can see here, it's not the bathing suit fat under your skin. It's the fat inside the abdominal cavity, what we call visceral fat. It's an inflammatory organ, increases your risk for every terrible chronic disease. It's an inflammatory issue. And most American men, and this is a very liberal, and it depends on where you're from and your genetic origin and where you are and like your and racial issues. But so there's different criteria. But even if you just say men in America, 40 inches, the majority of people have a greater waist size than they should, is the point I'm trying to make. It is an inflammatory organ, and it's life-threatening. And I will say this, Richard, as you said, well, when you go to the doctor, you know, two really critical things that are strongly predictive of chronic disease and of health that the doctors typically don't ask is, what are you eating? And number two, they don't take out, I had it here, but anyway, a little measurement, like you can use like a sewing, thing that you just measure.
Measurement. Right.
Thank you. Right. And so there are two simple parameters that we don't even do routinely in an office that are strongly predictive of what you need to have done for you and why you're there. One other thing, this concept of calories is out the window also, because it's not how much you eat, it's the quality of what you eat. And we can talk about that. But for example, we really focus, we know that it's life-saving, life-changing to focus on unprocessed and minimally processed food. Can I repeat that?
Please do.
Right, 70%, 80% in old data, so it's probably higher now, of what we eat is ultra-processed food. It's got so many ingredients and chemicals and a long list of things that you never heard of. And the food that we know, and I will say this is striking to your audience probably. What we eat is the leading cause, What we eat is the leading cause. What we eat is the leading cause. Yes, I repeated it several times.
Please, yeah.
Okay, what we eat and how we eat, but primarily the data is there, clear. What we eat is the leading cause of chronic disease and premature death. Isn't that incredible? But what I want to show you here on the left, I'm showing you and minimally processed food, primarily fruits and vegetables, seeds, spices, beans, some healthy fish, which is hard to come by now, and high-fat fish like Alaskan salmon, wild caught Alaskan salmon. There are some other fishes. But those foods promote life, longevity, add 10 to 15 years of vibrant life. And this talk could also be on aging. It's the same thing, Richard, and Russ, accelerated aging is also chronic disease. It's all the same process. So when you have a healthy lifestyle and you're eating well and the other things that I'm going to tell you that are healthy, it dramatically expands your vibrant, vigorous lifespan. That is your health span. So it's really dramatic, as well as community, connection, family, love, all those things are biologically active. So again, the emphasize, okay, if you eat over here, I'm showing you a McDonald's thing, and these are old studies. But if you want to eat omega-6 oils and sugary beverages, even a little bit increase every day, reduces how long you live and causes chronic disease. But if you're going to eat food like this, that's really not food, doesn't have nutrients. And the other thing I'll say, food is.
Hey, Richard, one sec. Richard, how many was it? Mountain Dews, or what was it you used to drink?
I was drinking 36 cherry Cokes a week, 3 12-packs, one for the house, one for the office, one in the car.
Richard,
no, I'm sorry, at least 36, because sometimes I will go to a restaurant and have one, or we bring in lunch at the office, I have another one, or I stop by the vending machine, so yeah, minimum 36 per week.
And Richard, I share that passion. I had the same issue. And cherry Coke is my favorite, and oh my gosh. But I don't want to get carried away, guys. Let me just tell you what we're showing. What I'm showing here is the left-hand column of vibrance, love, life, picking up your grandchildren, doing whatever you want to do. Richard, I don't know about you, but sometimes I go find a field, I hit the sled. I can still do it. Yeah. I still go do sprints. But the point is, and I'm not even as healthy as I should be yet, but the point is, we always have to work on it. I'm showing you a column that gives you a long, vibrant life and health span. The other column here with inadequate sleep, et cetera, you're talking about chronic disease, premature death, feeling bad, accelerated aging, and a lot of money. And here I am in the cath lab putting a stent in your heart, causing that, and you have atherosclerosis. So we can choose which direction we're going to go in. And I think that's the last slide I want to show, I think, right now.
Great.
And I'm trying to give you the perspective of where I am in life with this. And this is all biology. And then to go through it, Richard, maybe, and Russ, maybe I could just say a couple key things, like 6 pillars of health.
Go for it.
Okay, one is what we eat. And when we're talking about, like I said, minimal to no processed food, sugary beverages, Gatorade, fructose, they're all actually toxins and poisons. And I don't want to bore you with the biology, which I'm excited about, but we talk about mitochondria, liver disease. You don't know this. Maybe you do, but there's a thing called fatty liver disease, and it was first discovered in 1980. Okay, this is unbelievable. And it was discovered in kids. And I said, wait a minute, you have alcoholic liver disease, but you're 8 years old. You're not drinking alcohol, are you? No.
Wow.
Oh, wow. Well, you have this thing called fatty liver disease, which now, affects like a gigantic number of kids, a gigantic number of adults for a long term. It's silent disease. Doctors too often don't look for it. It's associated with diabetes and has a lot to do with what we eat, like fructose. And sugar is glucose and fructose. Fructose goes right to your liver and starts poisoning your liver, okay, and leads to chronic liver disease. It's the most common cause of chronic liver disease, and it's becoming the number one reason for liver transplants in the world now. Isn't this incredible?
Yeah,
Fatty liver disease, right? And it's all associated with obesity and diabetes, inflammation, all this stuff. It's all in there together. And so when you and I are sitting on a park bench, Richard, and hanging out in Houston or Atlanta, I don't know. I just look around and I see everybody with the big waist. I'm thinking, God, I got to have a talk with you because I love you, right? And then when my waist gets big, I say, oh, God, what are you doing? And I can always find out. But so one is we call it nutrition, but it is what we eat. It's what we drink. We should be drinking water that's purified, reverse osmosis, green tea, okay? And I get green tea that's decaffeinated, and green tea is really healthy. And it's decaffeinated a certain way, Swiss water method, not with all the toxic chemicals. And what we drink the water out, plastics, this will scare you. It's a real thing, okay? But a study came out a couple months ago where carotid artery surgery patients, right? Half of them had plastic in their carotid arteries.
Wow.
And the plastic in the carotid arteries predicted you're going to die earlier. You're going to be sicker than the person who already has a bad course because they have carotid disease, but didn't have the plastic. So what I'm trying to say is what we put on our skin, the water we drink, all this.
What we microwave things in.
Mm-hmm.
If you microwave your food in plastic, you're heating it up, moving those molecules into the food. You've got to use glass or ceramic. Cannot use plastic.
Right, glass all the time. And I pack everything in glass down in the refrigerator. Very important. Yeah. I got a water filter. I got this. I got that. But I'm not crazy. What I'm trying to say is I used to think this was crazy stuff, but now I know the biology of it and I know the data. But the other thing, Russ, thank you for pointing out, it's not just the food we're talking about. And the best food is the food that doesn't have labels. It's hidden in the corner of the grocery store.
Right.
Okay. And we have to teach people cruciferous vegetables. There's a gazillion of them. But anyway, we have to teach people and that there's an abundance of wonderful things out there. Abundance. If we just let people know that and then how to prepare it and what cooking oils to use and not to use, like olive oil is like improves your life. all these other, the omega-3, but all the omega-6 oils are very harmful to your health. But also the packaging is what I wanted to mention. The packaging is full of poisons and things that are called toxins and chemicals. So, you know, and again, eating at home with the community and all that love also is all molecules of emotion and your biology. Okay. And that also improves your health. And eating out is a very treacherous road if you're going to do that a lot.
Yeah.
But so that's a little bit on nutrition. And then I want to talk about, I don't use the word exercise and I don't use the word diet ever, because we're talking about dietary patterns, right? Not diet. Diets are not sustainable. They don't work. You can be on 1,000 diets. You have to get a healthy dietary pattern. And whatever we call it, if we call it, it doesn't matter, the Blue Zone diet or the Mediterranean dietary pattern, it's all the same. They're all commonalities, what I told you, okay? There's no difference here. And then joyous movement is the point. I don't like the word to use exercise.
I love that.
I like joyous movement. And wherever you are, if you need to get off the couch, if you need to go walking, and yeah, I have my Aura ring, okay, that tells me heart rate variability. It tells me how I'm doing. And if I wake up, it says, Greg, you're going to feel terrible today. It's right. But I like it, Richard and Russ, because it tells me how many steps I walk a day. And most importantly, for me, by contrast with a lot of the other things available, it tells me about heart rate variability, which is a balance of my red battery cable and my blue and my black battery cable. Our bodies run on two cables, and it's called the automatic nervous system. And that's why my blood vessels constrict when I stand up and I don't pass out. And that's my heart rate, and my pupils get big and small. I sweat or don't sweat. It's the two cables in your body, the automatic nervous system, and it impacts everything. And we have to have that in balance. And then that's another thing, vagal tone, we could talk about. And too much we live in a life where we're in the room with the lion. So our rocket fuel, our epinephrine, is going sky high all the time. And that hurts our brain and our body and causes accelerating aging and premature death, heart failure, and other things. So we have to have a balance to the vagal tone, the rest and digest and regenerative phase. And that's what my heart rate variability monitoring tells me. The numbers aren't important. What's important is the trend over weeks and months. Anyway, so joyous activity, we could talk about it all day, but it's essential. It prolongs your life. And no, physical activity in itself will not get you healthy. It's fantastic. And all these things are synergistic. But if you're eating all the stuff that's not good for you that we talked about, you can go exercise all you want. It's not going to matter. Now, the other thing I want to talk about is stress real fast. Stress is a physiologic thing. And whether you're aware of it or not, and whether it's physical stress or emotional stress, bad relationships, toxic relationships, this is all biology pouring into you and forms of stress, whether we're aware of it or not. Not sleeping is a terrible form of stress. Stress disrupts your metabolism and all the things we talk about that are critical for life, your mitochondrial function, this and that. So it's really important that we're aware of how to manage stress, is my point. And that has to do with the balance in the autonomic nervous system and things we can do to increase our vagal tone. The other thing that's really critical that people don't get is restorative sleep. One of the most important things for health and obesity and everything else. And when you don't get the sleep that you need on a routine basis, this is all biology. It's not somebody's opinion on the street, but it will make you eat. It changes all the hormones and nerves in your body. It changes everything. Everything that makes you who you are, you can't do it effectively without restorative sleep. And we have a whole course on sleep. Breathing is important. The other thing another pillar is social connection. And we know that we have an epidemic now of isolation in America. Okay. People on social media. Well, we're on social media now, so don't count this. But
1 hour a week, 1 hour a week.
but this is a good thing though, Doc, because we're doing film study and we're breaking this down. So don't think of it that way. Just think of it. We're in a locker room and we're going through the X's and O's. That's what we're doing. Exactly.
I'm with you guys, but the point I'm getting at is social connection. Isolation has now been declared a major public health crisis and also leads to chronic disease and premature death. So all these things are real biological issues. Yes, Russ?
I want to add hydration. And you mentioned a filter that uses, I have a Berkey filter. So it uses a stone to sandstone to filter the water.
Yes.
So it eliminates 99% of the toxins and so on. Costs nothing once you buy it. Lasts forever. I don't have to throw away all those plastic bottles that have held my water in them and gotten hot and cold and hot and cold. So whatever that plastic was shedding at that time went into that water. Instead, I get it from the tap, which came from the reservoir through the filter. It's about as healthy as you're going to get.
Absolutely. And, Russ, to support that there are systems that I think are wonderful. I'm going to get one that I can put under the sink so I can use tap water again and get rid of plastic. I used to buy the glass bottles with the Pellegrino, but that's difficult and all that. So I'm going to go with tap water that I know has a good filter. The problem I'm finding is I can't find a good filter that I can count on to get all the plastics. And you have no idea. I will just share with your audience what's in drinking water. There's everything from Depakote and anti-seizure medicines and estrogens and poisons and plastics and forever chemicals. So you really need, and the best filter so far mechanism is reverse osmosis. And I hate to say it, but there is one product of plastic bottled water that when I have to do it, I go to that because it's reverse osmosis. Whether they get it from a tap or wherever they say they get it, most of these spring waters are nonsense. They're from the tap somewhere, but as long as they have reverse osmosis.
And for our audience, what is reverse osmosis?
It's just a mechanism by which they purify water. I don't think.
Okay.
Yeah, it's just a mechanism by which they do it. Just like there's different mechanisms by which they decaffeinate things, but the Swiss water method is real and non-chemical. But anyway, I will just, and then I'm going to just go through this briefly, but I'm going to say social connection, okay, community, love, spirituality. All these things are critical to who you are biologically and how you are expressed every day in life. And we all need that. And also, it also has to do with, again, when I was growing up, and my Italian relatives driving me crazy talking, but the meal went forever and my cheeks got pinched 1,000 times. But actually, when we eat slower and we eat with intention and we eat with community, everything physiologically and biologically is better, is the point. It's not someone's opinion. This is all evidence-based science. And spirituality also makes a big difference in how we feel and how we function and how long we live a healthy life. The last thing I'll say is avoiding things that are risky. And here's the question. This is the real challenge, to educate people between health promoting and health adverse, because most of us don't know that, right? And there's so many things in our everyday life. I don't want to get carried away. All right. But I'll just think about what I've gone through over the last couple of years. It's not crazy stuff. My father was a fireman and a barber. So I saw people die from house fires. Today, they don't do that. What I mean is emergency responders, firefighters don't put out of fires today. What they do is they save lives with CPR and healthcare issues, right? But the point is, everybody has a bed. And most people don't realize all the toxins and flame retardant stuff that's in a bed. And they don't realize they can get an organic bed without all that stuff for less expensive than they can get a toxic bed. But the point is,
Wow.
the cleaning products that we use, or the stuff that we put on our hair and our skin, and all those things keep adding up over the lifetime to cause, over time, it's all these things that add up to kind of hurt your biology and hurt your metabolism. And all these things then lead to high blood pressure, obesity, and all these things are symptoms. They're not diseases. I know, yeah, we want to call it a disease, and it is. It's not an emotional thing that if you're obese or overweight. All these things are biologically mediated, is what I'm trying to say. Oh, wait, linoleum on my floor. You're obese. Let's call it. It's one of the things contributing to obesity. And talking about obesity briefly, I'll say, okay, I don't know if you guys know this, but more than 10% of infants are obese. Did you know that? And what I want you to know, for example, when we're talking about this stuff, Richard and Russ, that, wow, a study a couple years ago showed umbilical cord, the baby had 250 toxins and chemicals. Another study from people that did leading work years ago showed you just took somebody walking down the street in New York City and they had a lot of toxins, and we call them obesogens, carcinogens, but they're things that are adverse to health, is my point. So all these things is what we have to teach people, you know. Again, we talked about, and again, with food, cookware, Teflon, forever chemicals, right? We put all that in our body for years. And I'm very selective with the cookware that I use now, very selective. So all these things over time, it's a cumulative thing that hurt your biology. And then you get this handful of chronic diseases characterized by premature disability and premature death. So we have to help people with avoidance of how to make better. And I will tell your listeners, there's two things. One, an easy, free access is Environmental Working Group, EWG.org. And you can look up a lot of personal products and foods very easily. Like when you're going to pick shampoo or something like that, or cleaning products, you can find better alternatives on environmentalworkinggroup.org. Or, for example, organic, and we don't have time to talk about that, but not every food needs to be organic. But every year they put out a list of the Dirty Dozen, right? And Clean 15. And I use it, and it will tell you, like, okay, strawberries, blueberries, things that we got to have, like, that really improve life. But yet they're so full of harmful pesticides and things of that nature. And they'll tell you, okay, if you're going to buy something organic, here's the things that you really want to focus on, the 10 or 12 things. And wow, here's 10 or 12 things you never want to eat unless it's organic. So, and then another good resource is Consumer Labs, consumerlabs.com, that people can find out a wealth of information about products and food and olive oil, and, you know, what's the best olive oil and that kind of thing. And I guess, guys, the other thing I'll say, if you're not feeling well, please don't ever accept that you're okay because your lab is okay. That just means your doctor's in the wrong place. Are you with me? Yeah, your doctor's looking in the wrong place, you know, and if you're always looking under the light, well, you're only going to see what's under the light. But most of us have stuff that's in the dark.
Right.
You got to shine the light into the dark and keep looking. And, you know, I just wrote a chapter in a best-selling book. I was so privileged on mental health. It came out last week. And maybe I can give Russ a copy of that chapter, but it has all this in there because mental health is the same thing. Chronic disease, it's all the same mechanism. And you have to be careful. Richard, I want to warn your audience about supplements. And again, we're sold a bill of goods by a lot of people. A lot of supplements are actually harmful.
Mm-hmm.
And yes, there are some supplements I think, but again, if there's a compelling clinical situation and I know it's a clean supplement, I know who makes it. I've looked at the certificate of authenticity. So I know there's no toxins and heavy metals and poisons in it. I know it's not rancid fish oil. I know it's a good product because I saw it with my eyes. The company showed that to me. But I think, if you have a measurable deficiency and you can't correct it with food, and you're looking into the reasons why you couldn't correct it with nutrition, then a supplement is really helpful for a period of time, the appropriate supplement to correct a measurable deficiency, why you're really working on what matters. Why is there a measurable nutritional deficiency? And what am I doing to really correct it? The point here is to accomplish sustainable health. And there's no fast bullet. It's a matter of what we do over time in a cumulative way that makes the difference.
I have a couple questions for you, Greg.
Yes, Russ.
All right. One really quick one is there is a chart that shows percent body fat and what age groups. As you age, they ramp it up in terms of what is considered a healthy percent body fat. Is that a valid notion, or is it in fact should be the same thing no matter what age you're at?
No, it does change because we get older. Oftentimes, people lose muscle mass, unfortunately, and if it's too much muscle mass, it's called sarcopenia, and that's dangerous in itself. Mm-hmm. And Russ, I think you have to look at the whole picture. And again, there's a lot of thin people that you and I would look at and say that person's thin or they're small. But if we measure their waist and do the waist to hip ratio, waist to height ratio, or just their waist, we say, wow, you have that inflammatory organ in your tummy that's, causing you to be sick and reflecting that you're sick. So that's a very simple thing that everybody can do. And then other people can, but yes, it's probably a good thing to look at percent body weight, but too often we get carried away. Like a DEXA scan is the best thing, right? That they do for osteoporosis, that they do the right program to look at percent body fat. Mm-hmm. But what I'm saying is, Russ, I don't really need that to tell me when my body fat is not good or my muscle mass is not good.
I'm sorry, we can't paint the brush with the world with the Natello brush. You have years of training.
Wait, Russ, I'm not going to accept that at all because it's not the Natello brush. It's your opinion, and what I'm saying is I'm giving you medical-based facts. You've not been, Russ. You've not been in my boots taking care of patients and being a patient at the same time. So again, wait, you see this?
Uh-oh.
Flag on the plate.
You see this? Two more flags.
Wait a minute. Am I getting ejected? No flag.
Three penalties in your boxes thrown off, Russ. Okay? Because we're looking for truth here, Russ. Okay? Now, if you want to have a talk on percent body weight and BMI, we can do that another time. But I remember in past years, I've had to fight with you to get rid of this BMI bullshit, right? And again, it's hurt a lot of people in the American public.
No, sir. Percent body fat. That's been my.
But it's not a Natello paintbrush, Russ. I haven't spent years saving my own life, going back to the Cleveland Clinic all the time. I haven't done that to paint a Natello paintbrush.
Sorry, you missed my inference. Dr. Natello, you missed my inference.
What?
You missed it completely.
Okay. Well, maybe you should express it more accurately. How do you like that, Richard?
I got ran over by a bus. Okay. Well, here's what I was getting at.
Anyway, let me move on. And again,
just let me finish the notion.
Oh, go ahead, Ross.
It was really simple. Your expertise and experience is what I was referring to. When so many people are ignorant of so many things, I'm sitting here writing notes, and I've been studying studying this for quite a while, and I'm learning things today.
Mhm.
So, and I wouldn't consider myself,
Okay. Well, Russ, I'll tell you what really turned my head.
Yeah.
Okay. When I looked at Irvine Page, I'll tell you what, he's a guy that talked about atherosclerosis, and when FDR was dying from essential hypertension, another misnomer, okay, always essential to stay alive, and the world said you're dying, and yet the Russians took him to the, took advantage of him, and he was having heart failure and strokes. But what I'm trying to say is, and even Irvine Page, who then started the field of hypertension at Cleveland Clinic, and we owe so much to today, but he's the one that really said everything is interconnected biologically, and hypertension, and that led to the concept of what we know now. Hypertension is a symptom of inflamed blood vessels. Atherosclerosis is a symptom of inflamed blood vessels. So I'm trying to show you how it's all interrelated is my point. That's all. And it's not my paintbrush. It's stuff that I had to go back, and I could put stents in all night. But Dr. Favallaro, as Dr. Favallaro said in 1967, when he started bypass surgery at the Cleveland Clinic, this is a palliative procedure. We're not treating a disease. So the point here is to treat what's under the hood so people can have sustainable health and vibrance and a wonderful health span. Not just how long you live, but how long you live with vigor and love and life and that kind of thing.
Absolutely.
And I'm trying to say it's biologically, it's all biology. It's the biology of life. And again, Russ, and again, how frustrated I was, privileged to be there all night, putting in balloon pumps and stents and devices. Somebody having a heart attack. There's no greater feeling in the world to leave that cath lab and say, we did something good. Okay. But I can do a lot better for the world with this different approach. Then by this different approach, we know that we can reverse chronic disease, we can improve management of diabetes, overweight, and we can prevent it as well. So I'm trying to give you some of the six
It's
key.
all good stuff. It's all good stuff.
Great stuff.
Yeah, that's all. And again, and for NFL alumni, you have all paid the price. You've all been through it where you had a mindset and an awareness and a presence. And now we just need to kind of redirect that a little bit. And again, we could even be having the same talk about prostate health, okay? And about nutrition and prostate cancer, whether you've been treated or not treated. So this is something that just the whole medical world, that's not how we've gotten to practice with the hammer nail thing or treating tip of the iceberg symptoms without getting what's under the iceberg. Okay. That's the medical system we're stuck with right now. And so we have an obligation to each do our little part. And in fact, I'm going to amplify this. I'm going to try and bring a whole 10-week program, 12-week program based on my life experience and what I learned from the Cleveland Clinic's program for life. I'm going to try to bring that online in the fall, Richard and Russ.
Wonderful.
Yeah. So again, there's a way to help people, but what I'm trying to say, it may not be, it's a great thing. We don't want somebody to have a heart attack, but if they do, we want them to be able to reverse that chronic disease. So then 3 months later, they don't get a stroke and that kind of thing. And I'm not sure. And the last thing I'll say too about obesity is that it reduces how long you live by about 15 years, guys. By about 10 to 15 years. Isn't that incredible? So again, this chronic disease epidemic, of which obesity, mental health crisis, overweight, and I've listened to your shows, Richard. They're fantastic. You're hitting on all these things. It's tremendous. Thank you. And Russ, your efforts are fantastic. But I think it's important that we really get to what matters here. And it's not somebody's opinion. you know, and we have so many opinions out there that unfortunately aren't really based on real life, on real things, on science, on evidence, evidence-based, right? So that's what we have to really be careful of and be critical of before we go and ask people to apply it to their lives. And that's why I'm trying to say is there's like 6 or 7 pillars of health. And again, these chronic diseases that we have are just a few. And they're all different faces of the same, what we have medical terms for it. Internal immune dysregulation and oxidative stress. And that's what we mean by chronic low-grade inflammation. And now we know what feeds that, right, so to speak. And we know how to stop that process. And then we know how oftentimes we can repair the damaged metabolism from those things. And that's what we're all here to do, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. And Russ, forgive me. I don't forgive me, Russ. I don't care.
No, this is locker room talk, Doc. There's no forgiving in the locker room. We know this.
Oh,
we
yeah,
know
just let it go. Let it rip.
Teams that are successful figure it out in the locker room. They figure it out in the film room. We get on the whiteboard. We don't have to agree. Sometimes, you know, we get a little chippy, but we have the same mission. We have the same mindset.
Well,
we're going to work it out. We're going to work it out before we get on the field.
And, you know, Richard, I'm with you. And it's funny how we've been influenced by a lot of the same people. And, you know, it's kind of interesting. Again, the whole point here is if you look back in your life at the people who have touched your life, okay, and it's the same thing. They have influenced our biology and who we are, okay, just like all the things that we eat and if we're sedentary or have joyous movement in our life. And yeah, those film rooms taught me a lot, Richard, and absolutely. And very special moments. But I will share this with you too. I had a problem one time, Richard.
Uh-oh.
Yeah.
Tell us about it, Doc.
Well, I'll tell you. And okay, so I'm on the offensive line. And you know where my first step was on my right foot?
Where?
Backwards.
Backwards.
And it should always be forward. And when Joe Mowgli had taught me to do that in high school, I was on his first team. What a privilege. Coach Mowgli. And you know, the point I'm getting at is once we teach people the joy of doing the proper technique, then we all facilitate succeeding. And I never missed a trap block after I finally learned that. Okay. That's my whole point here. Okay.
Yep.
You probably got put on your butt less times too.
Yes. And that's the whole point. When you take that little step. Now, if you're a 500-pound, you know, offensive guard, maybe you can cheat and get away with that. From a guy like me who had no talent, I had no room to cheat. So if I didn't do the technique right, I'm not going to succeed. And that's how
we're on the field. At least you were on the field. I played left out.
You're probably better off not on the field because I got to tell you, when Joe Mowgli, okay, he's AD now at Coastal Carolina, but he was out of Fordham and Fordham Prep and Fordham University. And his first job, he applied to 256 schools to be a head coach out of college, at a high school. Only one school took him. What a blessing. Archmere Academy in Delaware, Claymont, Delaware. But, and I know we still kid about it. Russ, maybe you're better off not on the field. Why I say that? Because we had sticks and stones and rocks and broken glass. And I know we paid people to do that at night on our practice field. No turf. But the point is, all these are good lessons in life. And we're all here to help people. But we have to do it in an honest way. And we're really overwhelmed today. Like I've heard Richard say before, you walk into the grocery store and it's overwhelming, right? The packages are all made to be appealing to us. And I know I've heard Richard and the team talk about food labels. And I know this is important to me, but like in the 1990s, people like Dr. Castelli from Framingham Heart Study and Dean Ornish, a bunch of people, they fought to get any food labels on. They fought for that for years. And now the food labels are just inadequate. And I love that a lot of the European countries now have colors.
Right.
And that's for
Right.
food label. And like
Right.
one color means, whoa, you're in trouble.
Right.
And another color means, hey, good choice. You know, but I will tell people, you know, when you look at food labels, if there's more than a couple ingredients on it, then you shouldn't be eating it, right? And if you don't know the names of it, and sugar has as I last counted, I don't even know how many names it has. But, you know, and that's another thing that is really dangerous is the amount of sugar that we get. And again, sugar is glucose and fructose.
Mm-hmm.
Glucose pumps up your insulin, which is not good. And then fructose, the other part of sugar, goes right to your liver and damages your liver. Mm-hmm. And it's a major epidemic now, you know. But the point is, this is all positive. We can help so many people. And we need a program. You need a way to help people learn this and implement it. And you can't just do it in a brief visit. It's got to be like a program over time. Like we need community. We need support.
We didn't get here overnight, and we're not going to leave this condition overnight. But it all starts with awareness, and it definitely starts with caring and sharing. So that's my call to action for all of you. Share this.
That's a great, and Richard, that's a great call to action. Absolutely.
Yeah. So, Dr. Natello, if you would, please, we ask each of our guests to say obesity is a medical condition, not a character flaw. Please learn more about it and watch my video on tackleobesity.com.
I agree with that, Russ.
Well, why don't you give it a try?
Again, you know that I'm committed to tackle obesity.
No, that's good.
You know that I'm committed to tackle obesity. Yeah. And the fight against diabetes, and it's a real thing. It's a real thing to me.
And where are you going to find out about that?
Huh?
Where are you going to find out about more information?
Yes, and again, so I admire what you guys do, and yes, and again, you know this thing with, you know, Russ, this thing with obesity is a disease. Yeah, I could go on about that all day, and it's been recognized as a disease for a long time. And what we've tried to do here is talk about causes, multiple causes, and as Richard said, cumulative over time. And again, this other word with comorbidities, we have to get rid of that because these aren't comorbidities. They're different faces of all the same abnormal biology. Yes. Whether you call it obesity, hypertension, diabetes, they're all just a few different faces of the same internal metabolic derangement with the same causes, right? So again, when you're treating the whole person and you're improving your biology, that's why if you treat one or two of these things, then your risk for all these bad things goes down dramatically. And again, the point is that it takes time, but I'll give you an example, high blood pressure, right? If we apply just some of these things to people with high blood pressure, we could dramatically deprescribe, take away their need for multiple medications, just with, if you want to call this a better lifestyle, or if you want to call this functional medicine, it doesn't matter. I call it good medicine. And now even beyond that, it's good life, right? But because again, we call hypertension a disease, but it's not a disease. It's a symptom of inflamed blood vessels. And so if we treat the whole person, everything eventually, and even if we treat high blood pressure with or without drugs, even just a little bit of improvement in that blood pressure, a couple millimeters, translates to a dramatic reduction in stroke and other bad things, right? So what I'm trying to say is small steps, and small steps are really meaningful. And then eventually small steps turn into gigantic leaps. And you're not going to make an interception and run it back for 70 yards if you haven't started with 20-yard sprints.
Exactly. But this is all phenomenal information. And as I mentioned, this is a movement. So make sure that you share this content, subscribe on all of our social media platforms, subscribe to the podcast platforms, and most importantly, don't keep it to yourself. We have to share this information with everyone, friends, families, coworkers, loved ones, you name it. Get everyone involved. We all are a part of this team. If you're following any other influencers on social media, tag them to our content. We want to share. We want to see different perspectives. We want to invite everyone to be a part of this. This is a movement, and we need more members of the team. We have a formidable opponent. We have one heck of a squad that we're putting on the field against the battle of obesity. We thank you so much to our teammate, Dr. Greg Natello. You will see his page on the Tackle Obesity website and all his information. You're going to see this content. If you have anything that you missed, feel free to go back to our YouTube channel and watch this video. Again, the great Russ Allen, the we call him the mountain of muscle. Always a critical player in all of this. And we thank you for tuning in today.
And Richard,
yes, sir.
I have to say this. I have to scream this out.
Okay.
There's always a way to help someone. There's always a way to help ourselves, and there's always a way to help someone, and there's always a way to help others. And it's small steps. Be encouraged, be enthusiastic. There's always a way to get better. There's always a way to do it. And just have faith, have a plan, have community, have support, have a trusted health guide, health success guide, and you can do this. Small steps at a time lead to wonderful health and a vibrant life and health span. So again, I want to leave everyone with a note of encouragement. You can write your own chapter. It doesn't matter what age it is. You can write to be the hero of your story.
There we go.
And again, I want to thank both of you for the privilege of joining two wonderful and handsome guys today. What a pleasure. Oh, my God.
Oh, he's going to stay on. He's going to keep going. All right. Well, thank you both.
Thank you so much for joining us, everyone. Again, check out tackleobesity.com. Spread the word. Like, share, subscribe. We need more members of the tribe. Have a happy, healthy weekend. We'll see you guys next week.
Have a blessed day, guys. Thank you, team.